This video will disprove Tadao Takemoto's book The Alleged Nanking Massacre, Japan's rebuttal to China's forged claims, exposing its unsupported claims, inconsistencies in reporting, factual inaccuracies and questionable use of evidence that combine to make it and any explanations it presents untrustworthy. The infamous Nanking Massacre or Rape of Nanking is one of the most heavily debated topics of World War II, with hundreds of thousands of Chinese civilians allegedly massacred by the Imperial Japanese Army in 1937. Throughout the book The Alleged Nanking Massacre, Takemoto argues that much of what is today considered fact is erroneously supported by falsified and contradictory evidence that should be dismissed. Marco Polo Bridge Incident. The first place Tadao Takemoto's argument can be unraveled is his approach to the Marco Polo Bridge incident on the 7th of July, 1937 in the Beijing district. The traditional telling of this incident involves Japanese soldiers requesting to search a Chinese village as they erroneously believed one of their soldiers was held there, and upon the refusal of the Chinese, the Japanese forces attacked. On page 10 of the book, Takemoto glosses over most details of the incident, choosing instead to place blame entirely upon the shoulders of the Chinese, writing, "On July 7, 1937, based on the protocol, the Japanese army was having field practice at night near Marco Polo Bridge. Suddenly, several shots were fired against the Japanese troops from the directions where the Chinese troops were staying." This is an incredibly significant statement, as the specific cause of the Marco Polo Bridge incident has long been debated by historians, with many contemporary historians still remaining undecided on how and why it started. Additionally, Takemoto's statement varies from any other recorded timelines, and with the statement lacking a single citation, its validity is dubious at best. It is therefore very likely that this argument was posed from a desire to portray Japanese forces as benevolent and innocent, which is in the best interests of Takemoto's rebuttal. Presenting Japanese troops as innocent victims of a violent crime makes the beginning of the Second Sino-Japanese War appear as China's fault, which is later used as an argument to minimize and even outright deny the occurrence of the Nanking Massacre. Tungchau Massacre. The Tungchau Massacre is used by Takemoto to deflect from the harm caused by Japan during this period. The Tungchau Massacre was the murder of some 250 Japanese and Koreans on the 29th of July by Chinese soldiers. While the massacre is undeniably a horrific event, Takemoto specifically mentions it to draw attention away from Japanese atrocities. He fails to mention the chaotic nature of the region near Beijing during this period of time, as well as the isolation of this incident, merely stating, "On the 29th, in the city of Tungchau, Thongju, some 250 Japanese residents were murdered by the Chinese troops, and this incident was being called the Tungchau Massacre." On the other hand, Japanese war crimes during this period were significantly more systematic and consistent, and despite many such massacres occurring against Chinese people, Takemoto states nothing of the sort. Yet again, his statement, while verifiable by many other sources, is still only supported by a footnote with his own notes in it, and no actual citation. Inconsistent use of quotations. Throughout the book, Tadao Takemoto improperly and inconsistently uses quotations to such a degree it is often difficult to discern what is actually a quote and what is analysis. This is especially apparent in his usage of quotation marks, as some quotes, such as the one on page 32 from Iwan Matsui, use quotation marks for their entirety, while others, for example, a quote on the same page from Inaba Masao's book, use no quotation marks, and for no apparent reason. Additionally, throughout the book Takemoto will indent statements to show that they are quotations, but in several circumstances Takemoto indents his own analysis instead. Finally, at the beginning of the book there is a disclaimer that states some translations have been edited to provide a better meaning. This means that any translated primary or secondary sources in the book may have been misrepresented, potentially to suit the argument Takemoto is putting forward. Takemoto's failure to adhere to proper academic conventions and standards casts additional doubt on the exhaustiveness of his research and the quality of his writing, as it seems unlikely that an author not committed to upholding such basic protocols would be committed to practicing others. These inconsistencies may be a result of laziness or a lack of understanding, however they could also be maliciously intentional. Many of these irregularities interfere with the understanding of what is being presented as a primary or secondary source and what is Takemoto's own analysis. This allows for many of his own statements or statements from secondary sources to appear as facts which happen to support his argument. Lack of citations. Throughout Takemoto's book he uses supporting visuals in the form of charts and flowcharts, as well as many statistics and facts as a foundation for his claims. However, a multitude of these supporting pieces do not have any attached citations, drawing into question the legitimacy of his claims. As early in the book as page 11, Takemoto places a flowchart timeline of events leading up to the Battle of Shanghai, showing the dates of several key events leading up to the conflict. This diagram does not feature a single citation, despite having claims central to the understanding of the conflict, such as Chiang Kai-shek's decision to go into full-scale war against Japan on the 15th of August, despite this actually occurring on the 10th of July, 1937. This is also crucial, as the modified date of this decision makes it appear as though many of the conflicts were due to Chinese aggression during a period of peace, portraying the Chinese as malevolent and the Japanese as innocent yet again. The diagram also claims that China's conversion to an anti-Japanese policy was the cause of the Marco Polo Bridge incident and therefore the war that followed. All of these claims lack any supporting citation, despite their importance to Takemoto's argument. Because of this, it is impossible to verify any of Takemoto's claims, making his statements effectively weightless. Invalid style of argument. Takemoto presents history as a court case where inconsistencies in testimony can invalidate the entire historical account. This is an invalid way of approaching history, as inconsistencies inevitably arise in just about every instance of reporting. Takemoto uses this court case concept to dismiss all accounts with inconsistencies, which are even more inevitable in the chaos of a war. In doing so, he can deny any piece of evidence which does not suit his argument, so long as he can find another piece of evidence with a slightly different claim. He portrays these inconsistencies as proof of fabrication, such as on page 5 on the second chapter, where Table 3 presents the apparent fluctuation of the population in Nanjing according to two different organizations, the CCP and Safety Zone Committee. This is unfair, as history is an incredibly complex set of events, wherein multiple conflicting reports do not necessarily indicate fabrication or force the invalidation of a source, but contribute to an understanding of the event together. In finality, our review of The Alleged Nanking Massacre has concluded that the book's inconsistent use of quotations, lack of sufficient citations, erroneous information, and invalid argumentative structure draw into question the validity of Takemoto's arguments to such an extent that the book cannot reasonably be considered any kind of defense. It is crucial that books such as this continue to be reviewed and critiqued, so that the misinformation contained within them is not allowed to spread unhindered.